This is just one chapter of the Stories with Sapphire podcast. Hear this story and others like it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Hello, believers, non believers, and everyone in between. You're listening to Stories with Sapphire. I am Sapphire Sandalo. Now get cozy and open your mind because it's story time. The Voice in the Hallway, submitted by Mirsa Isabella Ray. Hi, Sapphire. I'm originally from Honduras in Latin America. I have always liked the paranormal, horror, and thrillers. Even as a kid, I always wanted something scary to happen to me so I would really believe. But nothing ever did. Until this chilling experience that I am about to share. I was 16 at the time, in my last year of high school. My favorite teacher was Mrs. Alonso, the art teacher. I hadn't had her for any classes for the last 2 years of high school, but nevertheless, we would greet each other warmly and chit-chat whenever I would pass her in the school hallways. I was so happy and excited for her when she told everyone that she was pregnant and was going to have a beautiful baby girl at the end of the year. Sadly, her story didn't end well, as she died in labor. I was so shocked and sad when the school delivered the news. My school was an all-girls Catholic school, so we had a mass and prayers for her soul. Not long after that, we were preparing for our finals, and one weekend I had forgotten my notes for a big exam in my locker. So, on a Sunday, I went by the school with my best friend to collect my notes. The nuns that lived at the school were never around and stayed in another section, so we would never see them. When I went to collect my notebook, the school was obviously empty and the guard at the gate opened the school for us. The hallways in my school were super long, and you could definitely see if there's someone else there. You enter the school on the second floor, and then there's 3 more floors down. We were going down from the second floor to the first when we heard a voice call from the second floor. Mirsa? ¿Estás ahí? Or, Mirsa, are you there? I looked at my friend with confusion, and she looked back at me, mirroring my face. We both froze where we stood. My heart was beating 1,000 beats per minute. I looked towards where the sound came from and went up the stairs swiftly to the second floor. I looked right of the hallway. Nothing. Left. Nothing. Down, where my friend was still frozen. Nothing. I raced down the stairs and commanded my friend to follow quickly. We ran to my locker, grabbed the notebook, and raced out of the school without saying another word. My friend came over to my house to continue studying for our exam. As the night went on and time had passed, we grew more comfortable talking about what had happened. We definitely agreed that we heard the same thing and that no one else was around, but we had no idea whose voice it was or how it knew me by name. We listed all the possible teachers, students, nuns, anyone it might have been, but couldn't figure it out. Around midnight, we were still studying hard, and because we would spend the night in a sort of pajama study party, we would take breaks from time to time. During one of those breaks, I was looking at the ceiling with my feet against the wall, and then I had a sudden realization. I sat up. My friend stopped talking when she saw my bewildered expression. "I know whose voice it was," I said. "It was Mrs. Alonso, my former art teacher. I was replaying the last conversation I had with her in my head, and now I'm positive it was her." My friend's face became pale, and tears welled in her eyes. She agreed and said that she couldn't believe it, but it was definitely her voice. We went back to studying and didn't speak too much about it again. I told some of my closest friends what happened, but no one else. After some time, I forgot about it. Fast forward to my first serious job after college in a big national NGO around 2016. I had been working there for about 1 year and got along well enough with everyone. A new employee was hired that week, and she was a nice girl from my high school. We weren't friends, but we did know of each other and were acquainted. A week or so after she started, I was sitting next to her eating lunch in the break room. The topic somehow turned to creepy stories, and the girl said she had a weird one. She said that she was at school one weekend after dark with one of her friends. They were waiting for their parents to finish a parent-teacher meeting. There was no one else at the school. Then they hear the voice of a teacher calling her name and asking, "Are
Are
you
you
there?"
there?
They went to where the sound came from, and nobody was there. Our coworker let out a little chuckle, but I was paralyzed. I asked her, "So this happened in high school? The high school we both went to?" She nodded. "And you said it was the voice of a teacher, so you recognized the voice?" She nodded again. Was the voice Mrs. Alonso?" "Yes. How did you know?" I proceeded to tell her what happened to me all those years ago. She stared at me for a few moments, probably trying to figure out if I was joking. Then we both began to laugh. We had never told our stories to each other. We hadn't seen each other after high school. We weren't even friends back then. It was so strange that we both had something so similar happen to us. They both happened not too long after Mrs. Alonso had passed, in different places, times, and days, at the same school. Whenever I tell this story now, I always add the part with my coworker and high school acquaintance. It was the validation I needed. I don't know if anyone else has heard her voice, but I didn't ask around. For me, 4 people hearing her voice was enough. None of us really know what Mrs. Alonso wanted. Maybe she wanted to ask how her daughter was doing. Maybe she had an unfinished project with her students. She was very dedicated to making her class fun, different, and important. She always stressed the importance of supporting and empowering other women. I believe she didn't have many people close to her at the school. So maybe she wanted to know if her replacement was going to be good and keep up with her unique projects and perspective. I would like to hear some theories of your own if you do include this in an episode. I hope that Mrs. Alonso is at peace and that her daughter is loved and well taken care of. After this happened, I definitely believe more in spirits and their presence in our world. It sounds like Mrs. Alonso really cared about her students. If I had to guess, I would also agree that she was just simply checking in. It's common for spirits to visit places where they spent a lot of time in life, where they still feel emotionally attached. Since she died unexpectedly and could not give an official goodbye, this could have been her making up for that. Thanks for joining me today. Have you ever heard something you couldn't explain? Send me an email at storieswithsapphire@gmail.com. And did you know that I offer bone and tarot readings? You can schedule a session at storieswithsapphire.com. Salamat and good night.